Hey, how's it going, YouTube? The fifth and second to last qualifier of the RLCS 2024 season is officially over for North America, and we had some chaos this weekend in totality between South America, teams like Furia losing, a triple commit kickoff to win with only 12 seconds left, and everything else. K-Corp not making top 16. It's crazy. We're going to be focusing in on North America this time around, and throughout the rest of the week, we're going to be talking about these other regions and breaking down some replay analysis and stuff. So if you want to make sure you don't miss out on that, like, subscribe, notifications. And with that said, let's jump into our North American recap for Qualifier 5, our 16 teams. I'm going to remember to breathe while I do this. G2, Snowmen, OG, Space Station, Gen.G, and the rest. A lot of conversations coming in about, are we going to see some consistencies from Snowmen trying to make top 8 again? Are we going to see some other names like Space Station continue to dodge their kryptonite that is Gen.G? Are we going to see Gen.G continue to trend upwards, or is G2 going to bounce back? A lot of those things being answered for us all this past weekend, but not in the way that you may think. I'm well aware that my power rankings completely tanked after this, which was great. I'm totally okay with it, but we did get some things right. We called Shopify, their offense looking really good, continuing to make top 8. Happy for them. Dignitas with Gyro, was that going to go good or bad? They ended up overtaking NRG and making top 8 as well, which is really, really, really good. So some new faces and some parity in North America for the first time in what feels like forever, but done in a way that I don't think many of us expected. First things first, Space Station goes 3-0. They pretty much get the ideal run going against NRG, TSM, and Luminosity. I think they were very happy about not having to play against a G2, which is normally what they would have to play. They have played against G2, I think, every single time in Swiss, I think, up until this point. But because G2 lost to M80, that's right, M80, the team that can't win a quarterfinal, ended up beating both G2 and Gen.G to go 3-0. They had such a difficult run and put themselves in as good a position as they possibly could outside of being the number 1 seed, which means their matchup was against the team in 7th, which we'll talk about here later. So M80 playing some big upsets, both Gen.G and G2 bleeding, but ultimately going 3-1. Nothing too crazy for them. OG continues to be that 3-1 team, just right around the top 4, top 5. Nothing out of the ordinary. But the big difference is Shopify Rebellion bouncing back. I talked about them liking their offense. Their defense still struggles quite a bit. I do think a lot of it is actually with their touches. Their touches tend to get away from them. They don't keep them as close to the chest as possible. They need to keep them close so they can force a 50 or a challenge and create opportunities. But possession being thrown a little bit too easily, and their defensive rotation needs to be cleaned up a bit. Cloud9 continues to be a resilient team. We talked about Omelette a lot over the years, primarily in this circumstance with them coming into this season being a top 16 for sure. A lot of talent on the roster, and they fell short and have slowly been grinding back. So Cloud9, I think, very happy. A lot of people being like, Cloud9, why didn't you pick up Space Station? Well, Cloud9 finds themselves in top 8 while Snowmen does not. Snowmen was a team that I think we know has a ton of potential, but with the young kids, making sure they stay motivated, make sure they don't get complacent, making sure they have structure, you're going to see some inconsistencies. They end up losing 3-0 to Shopify in that round 5. The other big story was Luminosity. Luminosity for the first time may potentially look like, you know what, competent team bouncing back. And ironically enough, I said this on stream, and I told everybody on stream, I would not be surprised that after they win convincingly in their first 2 rounds against easier teams, they then go through a gauntlet and bring themselves to round 5. And then it's going to come down to round 5 and see if they perform or not. That's exactly what happened. They go against Space Station, who many are starting to see as the true number 3. OG, a team that I consider 4th in the region, in a close game 5, and then they lose to Cloud9. And that's the difference maker. As we've seen in this format, specifically in Swiss, you have to win the big matches. Otherwise, you are done for the season, essentially. Luminosity is right now sitting outside of top 4 in the power rankings. They are no longer in world contention. And Qualifier 6 has a lot on the line for them to stay alive. They need to outperform both OG as well as Space Station. So we'll see how that one goes, but it's going to be tough. But yeah, Luminosity starting strong and then dipping down. And then, for the most part, things going as expected. The team's ending up where I thought they would be outside Energy. I would like to see them trend a little bit better, but I was mostly happy to see Dignitas with Gyro trend in the positive direction and the decisions for the change working out. So cool stuff there across the board. It does then go bring us into our top 8. Space Station versus Dig, Gen.G versus OG, M80 Cloud9, G2 versus Rebellion. The best thing about this weekend is there was no big blowouts outside of G2 versus Shopify. While yes, there was a couple 1-goal games in here, and there was 2 overtimes, and Shopify did keep it pretty close. To me, that was more of a result of G2 looking beatable. I think G2 did not look the cleanest this weekend. I think they made a lot of mistakes, and I have touted and preached a lot about the playstyles being skill ceiling not increasing as much as it used to be. Therefore, foundational, structural, consistency, the fundamentals are the big importance. And all those teams basically can have that nowadays. But as a catalyst to that, sometimes there is teams that have that X factor, whether it be Beast Mode, whether it be Daniel, whether it be Atomic, that in those moments where it's close, they bust out the flip reset, the ceiling shot, the crazy whatever, that pushes them in the right direction. You saw that all throughout the tournament this weekend. M80 going that 3-0 does put them at one of the high seeds, which means they should get the easier matchup, which against a team like Cloud9, they are the favorites there. There is no excuses after you beat G2 and Gen.G to not win. They clearly have a mental hurdle. As soon as it becomes single elimination, as soon as they know they have no extra lives, I don't know what it is, but they regress, they look lesser, and they fall apart. And it is problematic. So, M80, I wish you guys the best. You need to identify what it is, because with the amount of talent you guys have and the amount of structure and support you guys have between JC, your psychologist, everything else, there is no excuse to not be winning. None at all. Unfortunately for M80, they've got nothing left to lose. That could be a good thing, though. Maybe they pop off in the final qualifier as one last hurrah, but not making it, like, that team 100%, I think, is of caliber to make top fours consistently. That's really heartbreaking for M80. You feel for the people. You saw a lot of the tweets from the guys being like, I don't know how much longer I can do this, all that kind of stuff. It does take quite the mental toll, but it's a mental blockade. They're fully capable of it. I hope they believe that, but yeah, it's tough. OG and Gen.G, this is the big upset for everybody. Obviously, Gen.G, everybody was expecting to bounce back after having a win the previous week. I think Gen.G does a good job of showcasing that they are of caliber to be one of the top teams, but something felt a little bit off this weekend. And kudos to OG. JNaps had another worldie. OG plays an absorbing pressure type play style, and if Gen.G feels a little bit off, I will say it right out of the gate. I think First Killer has been one of the lesser performing players on that team as of late. I think Chronic's been probably their best. But I don't think First Killer has had the same level of impact as he's wanted, and it has looked kind of poor. And I don't know if it's just because he wants to touch the ball and he wants him to feed the rock and to the detriment of other people, but he hasn't been able to be impactful for his teammates, and they haven't been able to utilize him either. So I think Gen.G looks a little bit lackluster, but credit to OG. They welcomed in the pressure, they absorb it, they go for a counterattack, and then the offense. OG has finally found their offense. It's fantastic to see. So pretty good stuff. Outside of that, probably one of my favorite matches, and you can see exactly why. 4 overtimes between Dignitas and Space Station. Dignitas has found their groove, it feels like. I feel like they're starting to instill some confidence. Might be too little too late, but Space Station proving that good teams find good ways to win, and they did exactly that. So Space Station in a close game 7 do close it out. They end up going into semifinals for the 2nd time in a row. Good to see them able to dodge the scary side of the bracket with Gen.G being eliminated. They don't have to go up against that, and G2 on the other side. So Space Station able to make quick work, because I do think Space Station is better than OG. LJ played out of his goddamn mind. LJ is playing so well, and gets all the love and attention that he deserves as a true, like, top 5, top 10 player in North America. He's so talented. Him and Hoxer, I could watch them play all day. Good stuff. Very similar vibes to, like, Oski and Joyo, actually, now that I think about it. But yeah, Space Station playing really well over OG. G2 and Cloud9. Cloud9 honestly could have won the series. It was all 1-goal games except for the last one. G2 to me was unimpressive. I would say there'd be times where it's like the game's super close. G2's continuing offense over and over and over again. Then they would miss a shot, or it'd be a free touch here or there. And then Cloud9 would punish them for it. It would get close. It would be the tie game or something like that. And then Beast Mode would hit some nasty angle, or like Atomic would make something out of his pocket just appear. And then they would end up winning. But like Cloud9 definitely could have won that series. But I was not... There was moments, times when I was like, dang, G2, you're really good. But I think G2 looked underwhelming this weekend myself. And maybe that's just the expectation I have for them. But yeah, I think they won because of talent. And then outside of that, G2 Space Station, another very competitive series. This one, I think, obviously lived up a little bit more to the hype. Again, I think G2 continued to, when we saw it previously, put teams away and kind of bury them and be like, hey, we're going to score 6 and there's nothing left. Space Station, I think, did a good job willing themselves, but the fact that G2 still won, kind of proves the point of G2 being that dominant team. So, yeah, you're seeing the efforts. People are talking about Chicago a lot on Space Station, rightfully so. I think he's facilitated for that team quite well. They've got to feel really good about going to the major. They just got to make sure they do not botch it the following weekend. G2, congrats to them. They have qualified for the World Championship. They are locked in. They will be going to Worlds because they've, at worst, played second place, including majors. So they're good. They're well over 100 points. Gen G, with that 8-point place, does still have a little bit of a lead here because they got a victory and it kind of provides them a buffer. But that buffer puts them at a tie. So you're talking right now, second, third place is tied between Gen G and Space Station. And then fourth place is tied between Cloud9 and OG. What's going to basically happen is whoever places a top 4 is going to at least guarantee themselves a tiebreaker and a chance to play a best of 7 for the last spot. Worst case scenario. But for all these teams that are basically here and up, if you have one really solid performance and the other ones just happen to get knocked out in that quarterfinal instead, say hypothetically M80 goes and pops off, right? They end up getting a 20-pointer, right? And they put themselves at 36 total. G2 is probably going to still get their 8, so they're fine. They're probably going to get 8, so they're still fine at 36. They're probably going to get a quarterfinal, so they're still fine. But if they can beat them and then outperform one of these two, there is potential. There is potential. So being in that 16-point range is not a bad place to be. There is potential if you get 2 quarterfinals and 1 like second or first place to pass the other guys up. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be competitive as ever. I am super pumped to watch Qualifier 6 because it's not just the last qualifier and the last event of the year before majors in the World Championship, but the results there and who ended up qualifying basically determines who goes to the World Championship as well. It's going to be chaos. But if you guys have any additional questions, as always, stop by the stream, twitch.tv/Lawler. Links to everything down in the description below, or come join the conversation over here. It's always appreciated. Comments, questions, concerns down below. You guys all know how it works. Like, subscribe, social media stuff, all that jargon. We'll catch you in the next video. Peace.